Welcome to the first ever episode of our new podcast series, Adam Asks. My name is Leon Milnes. I'm the co-founder of Adam, and we specialise in helping ambitious businesses find great people. We've been in business for nearly 15 years, and over that time we've been very fortunate and privileged to have met a diverse range of inspiring founders, business owners and entrepreneurs. On their journeys, they've all been in the trenches, as we have, and experienced both the highs and the lows that running a business throws at you. Adam Asks is here to share their valuable lessons, and if, like us, you want to know what's around the corner in a world of uncertainty, we're here to ask them the questions and share their insights. We've got some great guests lined up over the next few months, the first of whom is here with me today, a fellow podcast virgin, Mr. Martin Murphy. How are you doing, Murph?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Thanks so much for giving up your time and joining me today. So for those listeners who don't know you, can you tell me a bit about yourself?
Well, I help business owners become leaders so they can design and develop and lead high-performing autonomous teams. And the idea being that the team can then run the business and they can then go and develop other ideas and explore opportunities like you are doing today.
Sounds like a lot of hard work, that, Murph. Let's say that I'm really happy with my business, how it's doing, and the direction in which it's heading. Why would I spend all that time, energy, and I presume money to invest in your services?
Well, if you thought like that, I wouldn't actually bother trying to change your mind.
Well, I don't for the sake of the listeners.
It was interesting. I was listening to a talk last night by Dr. Damien Hughes, and he was talking about the Barca way and what have you. And one of the analogies that he came up with was about people using mobile phones and their smartphones, and the fact that we think that we're okay with a smartphone, but how much of its potential do you actually use? So how much potential do you think you use in a smartphone of yours?
20%, 30% of it?
Well, according to the people that produce them, the Apples of the world, it's about 10%.
You're joking?
No, 10%. So, in a way, it's a bit like that's the same argument you could use with people and teams. How much potential do you get out? And leadership is a different skill set from being a founder, an entrepreneur, a technical person. It's about understanding people.
Yeah.
And so, if you don't get a manual with people, you really need to learn that if you want to lead a high-performing team.
Especially in a world that is changing as quickly and rapidly as we're living in now.
Yeah.
Might be worth me just explaining the context of how we actually met.
Yep.
Must have been 10 years ago now. Nearly at the start of when we launched our business. I think it was probably in a pub, I'd imagine. Sounds about right, you and I.
It sounds ominous, doesn't it?
And we started talking, didn't we? And I, at the time, I'm a big golfer, and at the time was suffering massively from the yips. And for those of you who don't understand that, the yips are missing a putt literally the length of your arm. And if you miss those putts as a golfer, it erodes away at you and erodes away at you, and your confidence just descends into a state of absolute despair. And as we were quaffing our pints, you started teaching me methods of how to overcome that.
Yeah.
And it clicked immediately with me. And from that time, I went from a handicap of 12 and I'm still playing off 5. And I literally stand over most putts. I'm not going to say all putts now, because my mates would definitely put their hand up and say that's a lie. But most putts, and knock them all in confidently. And at the time also, my business partner, Richard, you helped him...
Yeah, with his skiing.
With his vertigo.
Yeah.
Literally couldn't go up a mountain or up a cable car without having an absolute belly fit, could he? But now he's sorted. How did you help him on that?
As you say, it was about 10 years ago, but primarily people are doing things. It's a strategy that they're doing. So it's a mental, emotional, physical set of behaviours. And if you understand how they're doing vertigo or how you're doing yips, you can then start to undermine that process and insert a different strategy that will work more effectively.
And so moving on from that, we've engaged with you on the business level, haven't we?
Yes.
And I think you've helped us over the last probably 5 years or so across a whole different range of guides of leadership development, implementing and empowering and high-performing culture. And the difference it's made for our business at every different level has been astronomical. Let's just start by chatting about your book, a copy of which I have here, From Mercenaries to Missionaries. Did I say that right? Mercenaries to Missionaries.
Yeah.
I'm racing through it at the moment. I have to say it's absolutely brilliant, and I love the style with which you narrate your expertise and everything. How does it feel? Is this your first book that's been published?
It's a first published book. I've written a few Kindle books, and I've done workbooks and courses for online organisations that sell the thing.
Yeah.
So like neuro-linguistic programming for therapists was one that was very popular for a while, years ago.
Great.
But yeah, this is the first one talking about leadership and team development. Yeah.
And I see you've had multiple Amazon reviews. How does it feel when another one pings up in your inbox that someone else has?
There's a definite dopamine hit every time I get a 5-star review. So they've been very kind so far.
Brilliant.
And it's great looking at the graph and seeing that you've sold 13 books yesterday around the world. So that was quite exciting. You know.
Happy days. Good. Well done. And for those listeners who haven't read it, what's it about?
As the title says, it's from mercenaries to missionaries in the fact that people usually go into business to start off earning money. They have an idea, can improve something, solve a challenge for their clients. And they're primarily looking at it from a mercenary point of view. So it's all about the money. And so it should be at the beginning. What I want to do is help them go through that process and understand the journey that they're going through. So Joseph Campbell has this hero's journey. Well, there's a leadership journey. Yeah. It obviously starts off with a founder, then you become an entrepreneur, then you become a manager, and that's where it tends to get stuck. And this helps them get over that, what I call the delusional wall, and over the leader wall eventually, so that they can get a team, develop the team, and leverage the full potential of that team. So they become agile, they become creative, and they can also, they're very enterprising and solving their own challenges.
Yeah, and I guess looking at our business, or any business per se, you could be a great practitioner of what you do. So I, for instance, could be a great recruiter, but how do I then evolve into a manager, a leader who can inspire and step back from the day-to-day? And that's been a massive challenge for us, but one that we really engage with you to help us solve that problem. And in terms of your career, then, you must have been here, there, and everywhere. Can you give us a quick lowdown on how you've got to present day and what exciting stories can you share?
Well, again, as the title says, it's from mercenaries to missionaries. The first half of my life was about, I ran away from home to start with, from a dodgy childhood, shall we say. So joined the army. I was a bit of a pacifist, really, but, it was just a bed and 3 square meals, so that's what took me that direction. But I really enjoyed it, but I hate digging trenches. I dug my first trench in basic training.
Literally dug a trench, not figuratively speaking, right? Okay.
Dug a trench as part of the basic training. I swore to myself, I'm no bloody doing this again. It was just hard work, back-breaking. And also, I was put in charge of this squad, and one of them buried a radio as well, so, I got a kick up the backside for that as well. So I thought, no, I'm not doing this again. So as soon as I could, they always had me, earmarked to become an officer. So I said, I want to join the reconnaissance platoon, which are basically, they work in small units. They're always ahead of the main force, if you like. And so they did. They said, okay, yeah, you can go. So I was the youngest person to get in the reconnaissance platoon, if you like. It was all older guys, more experienced than I was. It meant not digging trenches because you were always on the move, So that was my result, Yeah. And so I came out of there and then went into security consulting, if you will. And I was a troubleshooter for airlines. They had a problem, say, in Jamaica. There's a lot of drugs being smuggled on the planes. They were losing millions of dollars in airport fines. So they sent me out there, and I would recruit a team of people. I would train them. I'd do overview of the security, evaluate the security of the situation, and then within, train the team up, put them all in the right place, and then within a couple of weeks we stopped about 40 kilos of marijuana going through. So continually, it was all about that kind of thing. And then I'd always thought about the special forces, the SAS and stuff. So it was always niggling in the background, So I kind of treated it a bit like going for a degree. I thought, well, I'll go there and learn what they've got to do. So I managed to get in, and I spent a few years with the SAS, jumping out of planes and, all the stuff that they do. Fortunately, it was just after the Cold War and before the Hot War, so I didn't go to any of these wars. I'm not a war hero or anything like that. So funnily enough, after, really enjoyed it, but I didn't want to be institutionalised, I just wanted to there was other things I wanted to explore. So I came out and then did a degree in environmental science, which is kind of 180, I suppose, in mindset.
And haven't you been to the Middle East? Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing there?
So every now and again I get asked to go and do some more work in bigger organisations abroad. And so last year I was working with intelligence agencies in the Middle East, teaching them leadership skills and all the concepts of how you develop elite teams and lead them and that kind of thing.
Amazing. So I'm sure some listeners, like myself, can't identify with intelligence agents in the Middle East. I mean, running a recruitment company in Manchester and London doesn't exactly come with the same risk, does it?
Well, it does and it doesn't. It takes a lot of commitment and courage and humility to be a leader of people. And so no matter how kind of passionate you are about your business, at some point everyone's in the people business, whether they think even in tech businesses, there's got to be an element of people involved in it. So you've really got to be able to leverage the potential of your business. Otherwise, you'll stay on a linear line, if you like. There's only so much you can do on your own with your motivation and passion. Eventually, you've got to get the people motivated, and they've got to be inspired. So how do you do that? And that's the thing. So it doesn't matter whether you're selling coffee or you're working out how to stop a terrorist that's got a gun to your head. The human brain, the human body, the human person is all motivated, inspired by the same emotional chemicals, and you've got to understand what those are.
Wow. And in the book, you talk about 3 fundamental principles of leadership.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on those, please?
When I first started as a performance consultant, my mentor at the time came in and I was reading another book, and he said, Murph, he said, you're always reading books. He said, you know more stuff than I do, but I've got 1 or 2 techniques that I can apply to every situation. And they work. And he was a very successful consultant, in coaching in performance. So I chucked out all the books and I thought, well, what I've got to do here, I've got to find the underlying principles. I'd already read across a wide array of subjects. I'd been part therapist, part coaching, part psychology, sports psychology. So I kind of looked for the underlying principles and I came up with these 3. Basically, you've got to understand people. The other thing you've got to do is we have 4 basic intelligences, and with them, they're like the primary colours for an artist. And there's an infinite blend of those. And the reason why we've got them is because we're always going through a life cycle. And that life cycle, if you apply it to business, is the founder, entrepreneur, manager, coach. Yeah. And then eventually a leader can do all those things. So that's the life cycle bit. And the next one is the process of discovery. You're leading. So there's always, evolution is basically a process of exploring, learning new stuff, and then mastering that, and then going back and exploring it. So it's understanding how you use those 4 intelligences in a way that's ecological, won't sit with you.
And how do you identify those 4 intelligences? And what steps do you go through to embed them into the DNA of your business?
Well, I teach 3 key skills. And so what you want your team to do, or the leaders and the teams, you're basically trying to create a team of not followers, but leaders who choose to follow. It's quite a shift in the way you're thinking. And what you want them to do is to be able to make decisions for themselves, so make great decisions that don't sink the ship. Yeah. And that's a scary thing for a business owner, is how does he let go? And that's where the courage and the commitment to it. Yeah. The second thing you need to do is, people talk about high-performing teams, but going forward, what we need are evolutionary teams that can evolve and also produce new ideas. Yeah. So like the phone analogy, if you've got a team of people in front of you, you want to get the maximum impact out of those people. Those people have got brilliant ideas. That's creativity. Now then, how do you capture those ideas? And more to the point, how do you implement them? And that's the brilliance of it. So that's where the exponential progress, the growth comes in from it. Yeah. And then the last one, collaborating powerfully. Yeah. Right. So you've got those 4 basic intelligences. You can call them personalities or strengths or whatever. If you don't use them in the right way, a bit like a shoal of fish, if they're not moving in alignment, then you cause friction. And therefore you don't get the creative brilliance. You don't make the great decisions. So that's what I teach people to do, to understand those 3 core skills. And if you do that, if you can master that, then your team will eventually be able to lead themselves, and you can do other things.
Really interesting stuff. And when I sit down with business owners, they say that one of their biggest challenges is finding the right people. Right. With the right blend of skills to complement the existing team. So how can businesses weave that into their talent attraction strategy, do you think? Well,
I'd be very wary about using kind of personality profiles. I mean, I do it, but it's more a case of understanding the way they think and feel. But I certainly wouldn't judge people by it. Other people will disagree, perhaps. But The problem with is trying to fit people into a box is that you end up with a load of yes people or people just like you. And what you want is a diverse set of skills. So the best way to understand how people are going to be is really look at their behaviour. Have they got the right attitude? Are they hardworking? Do they have a sense of humility? Have they got a growth mindset?
Yeah.
If they're going to be in a team, then you want to learn quickly what they're about. So that's where understanding, how they use their blend of intelligences to form a personality, if you like.
Yeah. And I guess trying to involve as many people of the various different colours in the interview process.
I always tell my people, or my clients, that whichever team these people are going to join, they should be interviewed and they should work with those people to find out what they're like.
Yeah.
And those people, can I work with this person?
Yeah, and the more the existing members of staff can actually make the decisions about
Absolutely.
the viability of this individual.
They should be a standalone business unit. You should be able to pick them up, put them in a different place, and that would contain the DNA of the business, and it could start off somewhere else.
Wow, that's really, really interesting stuff. I think we're just about coming to the conclusion now. So I'd like you to just share one final takeaway, really. If our listeners are going to take one thing away from this podcast, what will it be?
Leadership, as I say, takes commitment and courage and a sense of humility, and it's an evolving process. I've already started the next book, which will be about how that process goes along. If you're finding yourself with friction, stuff like that, you need to start thinking about being a leader and understanding that it's a different skill set. However you go about that learning, but it's a continual process of self-awareness. The beauty of doing the self-awareness and why it's so important for a leader is because you can't get people to stand still while you examine them and ask them questions and stuff like that on a continual basis. So if you start off with yourself, and that will then help you understand how others operate, if you like.
Great stuff. Well, Murph, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
I'm sure all the listeners will.
It was quite painless for our first
well,
one.
Exactly, yeah. Can't wait for the next one. We'll be sharing this via all the different social platforms.
Okay, cool.
In terms of your Twitter handle, just if people want to start following on Twitter, can you share that with us, please?
It's Elite Leader LDR Coach. So it's Elite LDR Coach.
Great. And I assume you're on LinkedIn and all that.
You'll just find me leadership.global is the website.
Great stuff. Next month, we'll be joined by John Woodall. He is the CEO of award-winning e-commerce agency Space48. And we're going to be chatting about how he is approaching the challenge of finding the very best tech people in what is a highly competitive sector. We hope you can all join us then.